So welcome everybody. We're going to talk today about Middle Eastern culture. I've grown up in the Middle East, spent the first 33 years of my life there. I've been in the United States for 15 years. So I believe I experienced kind of the difference. I just want to let everybody know that we are, me and my wife, Sam, we're working to create Arabic resources. And I think one of the resources that we've been working on is recording in audio or video format. This is the New Birth book by Brother David Bernard, read in Arabic. So you can find it online in Global Tracks as well, and you can share it with people. We're just finalizing Exploring God's Word in Arabic. So you can share it with people, including the teacher manual. Everything will be, so if you want to give it to someone, train someone, it will be available very soon. I think my wife Sam also translated this book for GATS. So I hope that with time, we will finish all the curriculum for licensing in Arabic. And the Facebook page here has a lot of resources. I'm just eventually at the end of this training, I'm going to send you a PDF of all the slides. So if you just kind of focus on the topics and then everything that I'm going to show you here, even some of the things that I'm going to say will be under the slides when I share with you the file. So you don't have to take a lot of notes unless you want to write your questions so we can use them at the end. As you know, this is the Middle East, different countries. What I'm going to talk about today does apply, of course, for the Jordanian culture. But there's so many similarities with the cultures of that region. And so that can be helpful for many of our team members all over this area. And I think it will be useful. In general, evangelism happen in different ways. We do invitations, we do through prophetic word, through apologetics, through testimonies. But the most effective, it seems like, to be the relational, the friendship style, where you share the gospel while you are in a friendship relationship. So I think this is very important. And I think the challenge that we have is how to build that connection. We know that people get to the Lord in different ways, right? They can see the Lord through visions and dreams. And we know this happened with Paul, and he guided him to Ananias. It could happen through prayer, where we can pray intercessory prayer for people and with angelic interventions like what happened with Cornelius. And then you can have also a direct witness like what Paul was doing and Peter was doing, direct witness. In all of these examples, sometimes the Lord brings people who are not directly witnessed to, that the Lord, he himself reached out to through his Spirit, through his angels. So, but you have to understand that all of these eventually end up with a person. Cornelius went to Peter, and Paul went to Ananias. So we have to be there and available. Now, to build that connection in a different culture, we're going to have to overcome some obstacles. Now, what is a culture? It's a set of unwritten rules. You go to the Middle East, they don't hand you a book of the culture. They don't tell you, this is what we give our kids, and this is how we behave and how we say things. So this is, you can read and now you can fit in. It doesn't happen this way. Even the people in that culture do not know that these are the norms that they have to do, and they are different from other cultures. You just live in that environment and you absorb these right or wrong, and then you start doing that behavior. And so a lot of times you don't understand why it happened. So it's pretty challenging. And what I'm going to try to do today is explain the culture a little bit more so you can have effective connection with people. Now, I want to say that the culture that we see usually when you go anywhere, it's just kind of superficial. It's the tip of the iceberg. The language, the food, the music, the holidays, the casual interaction. This is all technically superficial. Now, what we do not see is, communication styles, the roles of the family members, concepts of what is fair, what is time, what is a class, what's a family, what is attitude towards an elder or an animal or death or sin or authority. So we have so many things that we have to actually, figure out while we are living in that culture, so we can have an effective communication. So I am going to give some generalizations, and they're always false, but they're going to be very helpful, and hopefully you'll use them. Most intercultural scholars say that the American culture is almost the opposite of the Arabic culture. So your learning gap is going to be pretty wide, and I think most of you have learned a lot, probably from day one. But we're going to try to kind of expedite that knowledge today. You do not want this to end up into an ethnocentrism, which is the negative way of cultural interaction. We want to avoid that. In the business world, they say, hey, there are barriers between cultures, and it can be a language barrier, as you know, different language there. There's communication style challenge. There's cultural norms and values, perception and interpretation of events and words, and then avoiding ethnocentrism. So the cultural barriers, according to this writer, which I like, says is when it happened for communication, there are various factors. You can have language, behavior, values, beliefs that will create differences in understanding and interpretation between individuals and different cultural background. And I know you have experienced this, so I'm just trying to say that communication is very essential. And I'm going to focus on the first segment on communication. Now, American culture, including Canadian as well, language is actually purpose to convey information, and it's a function over form. It's not the style, it's the information I'm giving. In the Arabic culture, the emphasis is usually on the form over function, and this is affect the emotions. How people receive it is more important than what's really in the message. So the content is not as essential to be accurate. It's important to be impressive to you, to give an effect, to actually show you or make you feel a certain way. So this is a little different way of communication. Now, how to do effective communication? You need to deliver the information. You need the other party to receive it, understand it. But how can we really know that you were successful, that communication was effective, that if they actually deliver it to a third party? So when you teach somebody principles, doctrines, you want to understand that the process takes multiple steps. So just you speaking the language is not the end of it. They have to understand, they have to receive it, and then they have to convey it to someone else. And this is how you know they are effective, technically making, a disciple. So with all this, let me compare the American, and when I say American, it includes, of course, Canada, with the Arab culture. The American culture is more emphasis on doing, achievement, and sometimes it's just accomplishment. What are you doing? Actually, when you greet each other in the United States and Canada, you say, how are you doing? So what are you doing? It's about doing. But when you talk about the Arabs, it's about how are you? Kif halak? What is your condition? That's what it means. Hal. Hal means your status. What's your status? So in a sense, how are you feeling? So it's a focus on the person. So at achievement and development are not as important as actually having individual, family connection and what's your background, what's your rank, what's your age, stuff like that. So one of the other things that are so different between American culture and the Arab culture is it literate or oral? The American culture is clearly focused on substance. To do something, you have to be pretty precise. Written value is important, analytical reasoning. But in the oral Arabic culture, it's more important to have an emotional resonance to what you're saying, and it's important to have a group experience, imagery and sound, stress. You can see the animation, you can see the elevation and lowering of the voice, you can see the laughter sometimes, elaboration, extra examples, metaphors, and phonological, ways of saying things, and rhythm and rhyme. So it's more of an oral culture, and that's a big gap in the way we kind of see each other when we interact. When we enter a room with Americans, it's different than the loudness and interaction that you see in the Arab interaction. One other things also you can see is the way Americans think is more linear. One theme, organized thought. There's a beginning and the end. There's an object that we are achieving today. Like we have a purpose of this gathering, and Arab, it's non-linear. It's not necessary to have one theme. You can have in one setting, fellowship, a Bible study, and introducing new people. You can have just a gathering. That doesn't have to be a purpose for it. It's focused on the people. It's focused on the event itself, not really at what do we need to do. And this diagram here shows you there's difference. And this is done by business people because they were having a hard time making teams functional in the intercultural, multinational companies. So they kind of analyze how people think in different cultures. And in the Arab culture is mostly the Oriental type. It's just I'm doing A, B, C, and D together and see what we end up with. And we might not end up doing few of these functions. So this can be very frustrating for somebody who's really trying to deliver a message within a time frame. The communication in America is direct. Direct means I just mean what I say what I mean. And the direct communication is straightforward. If I have a challenge, I come up to you and discuss it with you. I engage in conflict. I express my opinions freely. I say things clearly. Now, in the Arab style of communication, it's indirect because they want to maintain the relationship and they don't want to say something that is offensive to others. So they focus not just on what is said, but how I'm saying it. It is discreetly avoiding a difficult, contentious issue. So if I have a concern, I'm going to be very tactful in the way I say it. I express my views diplomatically. Now, it counts on the listener to interpret the meaning. I'm trying to tell you, let's say, hey, are you coming to church this Sunday? Say, well, I have a cousin visiting from out of town, and we're going to go do this and do that. So they're not directly telling you no. They're just trying to get to that point to you. Now, this might sound dishonest in the American culture, but this is the purpose of the communication, is to keep the harmony of the relationships, because the relationship is more important than the task at hand. So the challenge with the North American and Middle Eastern, interaction is that it might seem dishonest if you look at it from American perspective, when you give these, beat around the bush kind of answers. But also the Middle Eastern people can see that a direct communication might seem rude. So you need to be careful not to sound rude if you want to build a relationship and communicate and witness. So the Middle Eastern culture tend to also avoid saying no in many ways, and they get offended when you tell them no directly. So you have to kind of break it, slowly to them, and that applies to a lot of Asian cultures. So some laugh when somebody is like doing something uncomfortable to others, and that's a way to cover their shame, in a sense, that they feel embarrassed, so they might smile, and that might also sound inappropriate. But the smiling is to soften the blow and say, I'm sorry. And sometimes they don't apologize directly, but they act like they're apologetic. And that brings us to the context, because North American culture is what we call low context, that we see the words, the tone, the gestures. But people in other cultures with high context communication, like the Arabs and the Middle Eastern, they notice what you say. They notice the phrasing, the history behind what you're saying, the posture, the environment, choice of words. There's so many things that they're also watching into that conversation. So one of the challenges that we have is sometimes in North America, we say honesty is the best policy. Just say the truth. But in a Middle Eastern mind would say being polite is more important than being honest. So that can bring conflict. The same with truth is more important than sparing somebody's feelings, while in Jordan would say if truth might hurt, just soften it, just modify it a little bit. I say what I mean what I say, but we expect you in the Middle East to actually read between the lines. And it is okay to say no in North American culture, but it's not okay in the Middle East. So because you don't want to hurt the person you're talking to. Now, this is a kind of a nice summary of the conversations that happen in the Middle East. Usually there's a prolonged small talk early on. If you get to business too early, it might be a little offensive. And there's a lot of moralistic style generalizations. You know, this is what we do. This is the right thing to do. And usually people talk at the same time to each other. And it's not unusual that people will be engaged in several conversations at the same time, that they would have 2, 3 in a circle speaking, and you're listening to the people behind you, and then you interject, and then you come back to this conversation that you have between the people in front of you. So don't get offended. This is how they communicate. The other thing is, we don't believe in listening in the Middle East and then I'm responding to you. It's mostly that I actually I'm going to probably, before you end your thought, I'm going to start talking. And that is going to sound like really a lot of interruption. And with that, it's pretty challenging. So the problem that we have is that can show that you're disrespecting. Let's say I had this problem with my own pastor. He would be saying something and I start talking before he's done. And I feel like, I mean, in the United States, it's rude. And I'm trying to figure out why am I behaving this way? But eventually I understood that this is my culture and I'm trying to kind of change that. But with that conversation happening at the same time, people start bringing some rhetoric and may show some excitement, maybe some anger, not at you, but at the topic. And then you give you more moral constructive ambiguity. And at the end, you don't have a conclusion. And that's kind of frustrating sometimes because people leave it open to interpretation. And that can be frustrating when you mentor people as well. They like sincerity in the dialogues. Women in the Middle East are perceived as submissive. And so they do more listening than talking, usually in mixed conversations when there's a man and a woman. In some cases, the females, they're interrupted. So don't feel offended because this is how the culture is. Unlike women in the Western studies, they are found to be interrupted by men more often than the reverse. So the cultural studies that happen in the past really say that women in the Middle East can get interrupted, and they're almost okay with that, which is, you know, it's not the right thing to do, but that's how the culture operates. So one thing I want to show you also on this graph is the Arab listening habits are a little different than the American. On the left, you see they look for the personal touch. They're defensive of their faith. They want flattery, you know, just compliments, and they absorb facts, you know, indirectly. Now, U.S. listeners listen in bits and pieces. They like to have somebody to say jokes, to be entertaining, tell me what's new, give me new facts, and a lot of time give me the bottom line. So that way of listening is a little different. So if you want to catch the ear of a Middle Eastern person, try to look for the personal touch, talk about family, talk about themselves, give them some compliments. They start getting really, you know, interested in spending some time with you. The communication style, as we said, it's direct in the US and Canada, it's indirect in the Middle East. And that brings us to a topic of challenging in ministry, which is handling problems. So in the US, you have a problem, you sit across the table, you kind of discuss it, and you're done. in the Middle East because they want to keep the relationship. They avoid the confrontation. They're not going to talk directly about it. They might come and see you. They might spend 1 or 2 hours chatting about something, and then they might, at the way out of the door, maybe mention it. And that is pretty frustrating for a lot of people. So if they are upset, they will distance themselves from you. They tend to avoid the confrontation. They will not confront their leader if they don't like something that happened. And that brings us to the challenge of gossip, because people are frustrated. They cannot confront the leader, so they go tell everybody else about the problem with their leader or with their minister. So there's a lot of backbiting in that culture because all the discussions happen behind closed doors, and you would wish that people will. I wish you'd share this with me. It would have been easier. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen this way. So sometimes you have to give them enough time to open up, and you have to stress, I want to know, tell me what's happening, why you're distancing yourself. You kind of have to press a little harder than usual. And they won't see this as annoying. They would see this as you really want to, preserve the relationship and keep it. But they have to be very careful not to lose the relationship, because they value the connection with you more than the ministry, the structure, the events that happened. Now, this is an American stereotypical perception of Arabs as a little violent, boasting, and insincere. And this is, I didn't come up with this. I mean, social studies have shown this, and I'm sure people in ministry don't feel this way. But in general, this impression can happen because Arabs tend to be over assertive. And that is their posture, the way they say things. So people might look like they're a little more boastful or insincere, but this is just the communication style. One of the things you have also to understand with the language is that the Arabic language is not just a communication method like in English, let's say. It is an art form. A lot of people have pride in how they write the language. It has a big part of the Arab nationalism because it's almost like an identity. You have so many, countries speak English that they're not really, American or British, but they do. So it's hard to do nationalism on that. The other thing that I want to focus on is the religious phenomena. You have to understand, imagine that English is the language that the Bible was written in, and everybody in the world cannot translate it. They have to read it in English. And this is the language that Jesus spoke. And this is the language that you're going to have to pray. You have to learn to pray in English. So people have pride in Arabic because according to Muslims, the Quran was given in Arabic, and people from every culture, nation, and language have to learn it in Arabic and have to pray in Arabic. So there's a lot of sense of pride in that language. And it's a very artistic language in a sense that it really has a certain rhythm and rhyme to it. So when some writers actually describe it this way, they said, hardly any language seems capable of exercising over the minds of its users such irresistible influence as Arabic. The rhythm and the rhyme, the music produce on them effect that they will call lawful magic. And a lot of people would even call it, it's a language. When people recite the Quran, they have it in a certain music that almost resembles the effect of classical music on Westerners. So learning Arabic is helpful, and it brings the communication to a different level. One other thing I want to also say about repetition in the American culture, it is not looked at in a nice way, because mostly it's like implied that I'm repeating because you're not listening to me, you're not focused. And the speaker usually thinks that the statement was not heard, or so he's going to keep repeating it. So it's not something liked in the American culture, but in the Arabic culture, it is liked because repetition is a positive feature. So if I'm stressing on something and I'm repeating it, it's actually a good thing. People respect that. It is not uncommon to find a string of descriptive phrases or words, all referring to the one phenomenon. And I think you can find this in Psalms, where David is describing something in different ways, in a couple of ways, in a poetic way. So in Arabic, there's always, we say the same point in different ways. So it might be frustrating to you, but they don't mind that, they like that. Now, when you have a communication and you have, you find yourself that you have to compromise. And of course, I encourage compromise as long as it's not doctrinal, it's not, the word of God. But usually in a lot of cultures, especially Middle East, they expect you to compromise, they expect you to find a middle way. And meaningful compromise is only possible when one is able to see how the other side prioritize its goals and views. So it's important that we know why we prioritize. We want to preserve the relationship, and we prioritize because some things in that person's life has way more value than what it means in my life. So I need to be accepting to that compromise. I'm going to shift now from the communication to more cultural interactions that is really focused on these 6 graphs. In the United States, if you compare the United States and Jordan, there are different principles of cultures that are unchanging in a sense. The biggest difference between them is between power, distance, the individualism, masculinity, uncertainty, avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. And I'm going to focus probably on 2 or 3 of these, which are essential in your mission. The 2 on the left here, the power, distance, individualism, they have a more than 30-point score difference, which means there's a big variation between the American and the Jordanian culture in these specific areas. So one of them is the power distance, which means Jordan is hierarchical society way more than the United States. People accept hierarchical order in everyday life. Everybody has their place in the system. And hierarchy is an organization seen reflecting inherent inequality. It means that there is centralization of power, and subordinates expect to be told what to do. And the power is usually in the hand of the few. So that's what Jordanians would accept and actually expect sometimes. That's completely opposite of the American. This is a map of power distance in the world, and you can see that there's a big difference between Canada and the US, color, and Jordan, and that suggests to you a big gap there. Now, what is the application to that? So in a collective culture like the United States, like the Middle East, compared to individualists like the US, hierarchy in the Middle East might seem like disrespectful in a culture that believes in equality in North America, while hierarchy for an American might seem oppressive. So for relationships, it's important to understand a few concepts that the extent to which less powerful people have, organizations within the country, they expect that they have leaders from certain families, sometimes from certain tribes, that bring you to a way when you want to reach out somebody in a family, you have to be strategic in a sense that the kids don't have much of a say, because there's age hierarchy, there is gender hierarchy, and there is the hierarchy also in the people's family. Who are they? The size of their tribe, all these things. So you want to spend your time and effort strategically, and you do not want to be, let's say, in the United States, we do bus ministry. You bring people in and you hope the parents would follow. Usually the parents will not follow the kids. It's the opposite. So if you want to reach a family, even in the US, the chance of somebody getting to, let's say, a mother come to church, bring her kids, is probably 17% to bring the father, while it's 92% chance if the father comes to church that he brings his family. So with that, I'm talking about the chance of, in the Middle East, is even a bigger gap. So if you bring a kid a event or something like this, it's unlikely that the parents would actually follow. So you need the head of the house, the head of the household, the highest hierarchy of the house, and you focus your effort on that part of the family. So in Jordan, you can, with the hierarchy, this means people accept the hierarchical difference, and they expect you to respect that as well in their country, because otherwise they're going to feel like you're disrespectful of that. So this is a quick one. In the United States, more equality. Now, when you talk about kids, and also they're in the Western countries, they're raised by mom and dad, a little bit by the grandparents, but everybody influenced the upbringing of the children. So if an uncle doesn't like what the kid is doing, he has the veto power in doing a lot of the things that actually, the kids are doing. Maybe they're involved in an activity for a church or something like that. So there's a very important concept here, is that you have to be strategic when you plan the outreach that you do, or you have to plan also to connect with the people who have the influence in the family. I'll shift gear now to the collective, which is, I think, a very big difference between collective and individualist culture. Jordan has very low score in individualism, which means that it's considered a collective society. Is evident by a long-term commitment to the members of a group, and the family is considered not just the immediate families, the extended family, and even to the extent of the tribe. Sometimes loyalty is essential. You have to stay loyal to that group, and that group will actually protect you and keep you safe and provide your needs, because usually governments do not provide as much. The societal connections foster strong relationships that everyone has to actually continue to try to keep these connections. And you have to also not to bring shame to your community, not to bring shame to that group. So all what you focus on in your life is to stop any activity that can bring shame to your group, to your collective. And that collective is going to shame you to keep you in the group, because they want the benefit of you being part of that group. So they want to keep you. So they will shame you and pressure you to stay part of the group. Now, this is a map. You can see the collective. Individualist cultures are in the dark color. Mostly the affluent countries are actual individualist, where you don't have to depend on the country, on your countrymen. You don't have to depend on your family. You have roadside assistance, and you have home insurance, and you have health insurance, and you have, your own car. You have enough income. So most of these countries are Scandinavian, North European, Australia, and North Americans. They do have all these the means to actually be independent of the family. It's big lands also that they're people away from each other, and they have freedom of speech, where I can say whatever I want to say. I don't care if people are offended by me. And in collective cultures, no, I have to stick with the group. I cannot offend the group. So if you want to technically interact with people, you are coming from a completely different perspective. The interpersonal connection among these in the United States and Canada is pretty loose, and the family is very small. And I think when you interact with people from collective culture, they have to be loyal to their group all their life, because they provide them with security and safety, and they will defend their interests. So if they move out of that group, the pressure is significant for them to stay in the group, for the survival of the group. So I think this is a big barrier in cultural communication. And I think you want to build bridges with people and avoid building walls. And sometimes the activities that you do can sound offensive. So when you try to talk with someone about certain principles, sometimes they're not perceiving it the same way, because they have a collective mentality. Now, as an individualist, you depend on yourself, and the interest of the person is what they want, what they dream, task is important for you. You want to achieve certain things, and you don't want to keep, connecting with family, taking their input. All this is actually the opposite of what a collective culture would be. You cannot think beyond what the group wants you. Your identity is attached to that group, and it's multi-generational, and everybody cares for everybody else, the kids, from the elders and to the kids. They value interdependence, and actually they want to depend on each other, and they prioritize this relationship. So sometimes you breaking into that collective group is not easy. It's going to be hard for you to be friend of them, because their days are filled with activities related to that group. This is Egyptian family. This is like an evening. Most evenings people would gather. This is what they do in the evenings, rather than hobbies, rather than going to school, rather than starting their own business. It's mostly about spending time together. And children absorb this, and they comply with others, and they know their place in the hierarchy. Women do the same. Young men do the same. And any transgression to this group, if you're not showing up for some time, people are going to start asking why you're not part of the group. So being absent is not an option, because that's a signal to them that you're leaving the group. So in collective culture, this multi-generational connection also bring you to the point that you have to conform in your ideas and your faith and your perception of others. We all think the same. You cannot think outside of that. It's about we, not me. And there's also a strong psychological attachment and fear of rejection in these groups, because I do not want to live outside my family. I want to do everything they ask me to do. So I will stay in the family to maintain that collective mentality. So if you look at the United States, the most individualist, if you look here on the graph, the Middle East comes in a little more like in this area, close to Russia, almost in the middle. And this is the Middle East. You can see the Chinese culture is the most collective. I'm going to leave a QR code here for you. If you want to pause later the video and scan, you can test if you're a collective or individualist. I think it would help you to know. You will have an advantage if you're more collective in a collective culture. So one other thing I want to discuss is the group setting. Usually when we gather in North America, it's like in a party, it's usually 2-3 together. And the Middle Eastern system is more of everybody's included. You shouldn't give your back to people. Everybody has to be in a group circle somehow. So I think this is important to know how to behave when you're within a group. It's a little different than the North American culture. People don't have a bubble, and that's a challenge if you like your bubble and it's really close. This is another graph that I like, because in North America, you connect with somebody who knows a couple of people, 2-3 people, and then you build another connection with another group. And the Middle East is like a beehive. Everybody's connected to everybody. And for you to find time with someone to connect with you is not easy. So I like to say it this way. You want to bring every short-term interaction happen in the taxi, in the store, anybody, to a long-term interaction. And that is not easy, because they have a full schedule between family events, their own personal family, extended family, their in-laws here and there, work, friendship already established, that they have to maintain. These relationships have to be maintained. So if you want to, talk with them or have a meeting with them, and they say, well, if their uncle wants them to take them to the doctor appointment, that trumps you. If their mom and dad ask for something, that trumps you. If there's kids need something, so you are at the lowest level of the hierarchy unless you bring something to that relationship. Why do they want to include you in that? And I encourage people to say, don't get one person and start witnessing right away, because if that person, receives it, he's going to get disconnected. You want to do this very privately, if they're open to it, of course, but you also want to connect with the rest of the family, because your goal is to get into this red network of connections. And I think that is your goal, is to know as many people. Now, to build trust, it takes time. So what you need to do is invest in that relationship. And when that person at the edge of that beehive there connects with you and your friends, then they will give you access to the remainder of the network. And that would open up a lot of people who are already interested to hear what you want to say, already interested to figure out, what do you believe? What do you need to say? And I have a dream and I want to share with you. So why? Because now you're trustworthy, because someone in the group have trusted you. Excuse me. I'm going to jump into this topic as well. It's a very important topic. It's called patronage. Patronage is a biblical and cultural principle that in the West we don't like, because patronage is you're providing some services to people, and we like equality in the US and Canada. And with equality, our relationship actually looks like this on the left side. We're all equal, we're all friends, and we have a good relationship with each other. And in the Middle East, a patron is somebody who actually has a lot of power, a lot, maybe money, maybe influence. And the relationship with that person is asymmetrical. So the friendship is usually symmetrical, reciprocal relationship. While if you talk to patronage, it's asymmetrical relationship where people are actually can provide things for you that you cannot repay them for. Let's say a government official who can approve an application for you that is not really meeting the needed criteria, but they're able to take a risk for you. So with that relationship structure, patronage is something avoided in the West because it's everybody should be independent, doesn't need anyone else. And if I'm giving people things, this is it seems corrupt in a sense that patrons are doing something to receive something in return. And I think this is the wrong way of looking at it, because in the Bible, there's a lot of patronage examples. And let me show you quickly here. The Shunammite woman was an example that she offered the Elisha a place to stay, comfort for him. And he asked her, what can we do to you? And she said, well, I'm good. I don't need anything. But when she had a need, she came back to him regarding her son, and he complied. So in a sense, she was his patron for some time. But when she had a need, she went and asked him, because now she has this relationship with him that she provided something for him for a while, and now she asked something in return. Now, the challenge that we have is that if I'm doing this for someone and I'm getting something in return for me, I understand that this could sound like corrupt. But the Bible also teaches us that the patron-client relationship is actually a biblical way almost of salvation. And God is our sort of a patron. Paul says that he gives us salvation for free, and we give him back faith, loyalty, and thanks and allegiance. So God is, of course, a different level, and we're not trying to be that level with people. But I want you to see it this way. Such a relationship can guide people to Christ. And that's what I want to say, is that when you are a patron in somebody's life, and I can tell you in the Middle East, most Christians believe that the churches are patrons because they get their kids education, they have hospitals, they hire their teachers, their family members, they can give them school discount, they can give them Christmas gifts. All these things are considered patronage relationships. So when they need help, they go to church. When they need support, they go to the church. So the church in the mind of a Middle Eastern Christian is a patron, a matron. So, but that relationship is fostered, and everybody's practicing it in the Middle East, that it's almost expected. Now, when can you practice patronage biblically that you bring people to Christ? Is that when you actually do something good for people, you volunteer, that doesn't have to be money, of course. It can be connections, it can be reference to something. It could be support during a tough time. All this example can be used to bring people to Christ, in a sense that you're not asking for a personal favor in return, but actually you are going back and telling them, hey, I want you to come and study this with me. Let's have a meeting. I want to connect with you, and I want to share with you something important in my life. So you can use that for their own benefit and for the kingdom rather than for your personal benefit. And I think corruption happens if I'm doing this to have a personal benefit, but if you're bringing it to the kingdom, then it's not. So I would encourage you to be patron of your friends. And patronage is a good relationship. And again, it doesn't have to be financial. It can be reference, connections. Somebody might tell you, hey, I want to study in the US. Say, well, let me do some search for you. Let me help you out with this. And these are always remembered by the family members that you help one of them, and that's going to give you a lot of points in that relationship, and that you can pull on later and say, hey, can you help me do this? We have a church event. We have something. I need you. I want to share with you something. They're not going to tell you no, because you created that relationship with them. Now, in the Middle East, I show you that network of connections. You can be a patron, you can be a client, and you can be a broker anytime. You can broker a connection between this person and this person. You might not provide anything, but you're the broker of the relationship. And Paul would describe Jesus Christ as the broker of the salvation that came from the patron, our Father in heaven, to us on earth. So it's an important relationship that happens all the time. One thing I want to say about patronage also is that people during the day can be a patron, a broker, and a client at the same time. Depends on the relationships. So with my younger brother, I can be a patron. With my uncle, I might be a client. With a friend of mine, I might be some sort of the broker of a connection. I don't go to buy a car unless I know somebody. I have to find with my cousins who knows the seller, who knows the dealer. So I don't go without somebody in between to kind of broker the relationship and build that trust. So I think these are important relations that you have to understand in that culture. One thing I also want to focus on is the way we approach, and I know you do, you know this. I just want to put that in for completeness. There's so much in common with the Muslim culture in Jordan. These are all the things that you actually have in common. So I think in my mind, there's no one closer to a Middle Eastern Muslim than an apostolic, because we have so much in common. And usually we don't open up in North America with holiness and oneness, but these are the most valuable topics to actually start discussing with your friends if they're from Christian or Muslim background, because especially because they like and respect holiness. And now for Christians, a strong Trinity background, I would wait until you feel the right time, the Lord leads you to open up the oneness topic. But for Muslims, definitely it's my open and discussion point. Now, modesty is essential, and I think it's attractive that most Muslim women do not want to be in a relationship with women who are immodest. And so that's a great advantage that we have. And I know everybody goes to the Middle East, get trained on being modest, and that's not an issue for us. But I can tell you that they do not want to bring you home if you're going to be, if a woman would be some sort of a attractive to her husband or son or something like that. So they want to know that they want to know that you have a safe home. There's things you don't watch on TV. You don't drink, you don't do this, because they assume that Westerners like the movies, that there's certain things that they do and accept in their life. So you have to be clear early on in the relationship. We don't do this, we don't do this, so they can be comfortable coming to your home. One of the things also I encourage people to do is not to argue and not to say something negative about other religions, and I know you know this, but you can also plan to have friendship with people without really sharing faith to start with. You need to build friendship, and that takes time. And if you have a friend, you just go places, do things together, fun activities, go to museums, sightseeing. Take them with you when you do that. Try to have a friend from the culture to take you there. Say, hey, I want you to show me. Present yourself as you need their help, and people like to help. So that builds friendship, and then that opens a pathway. Now, there's a lot of methods out there to reach people from different faiths, right? And I believe that if you have the power of the Holy Ghost and the wisdom of the God, I don't think you need a method. I think there could be a pathway that we can follow, and of course you get enough spiritual training and direction. I'm just trying to share quickly here what I see works in North America. It might be the same in the Middle East. Pray and fast and hear who, when to connect with, and I think we all do that. Show them the love of God by your actions, and I think that's essential, especially in the mission field. Build friendship and trust through hospitality, and we're going to talk a little bit more about hospitality, and pray for and experience the miraculous. And I do understand that this is known and practiced. Again, as I said, no group on earth is as close as our Muslim friends, like an Apostolic Pentecostal. I encourage people to ask, or their Muslim friends, 3 questions. Do you have proof that the religion came from God? Respectfully, do you pray and fast enough? And do you have assurance of eternity? And I think most people would say no to these questions, and that can open up a topic of discussion. But you always have to be aware that people are not ready to share these things unless you become friends first. One of the things I suggest also is to use the power of the Holy Ghost, miraculous healing and changing. And I think that is actually the supernatural that trumps all the cultural barriers that we have. With that, I want to say that we need the supernatural. What I'm going to teach you now is not you don't put your faith in cultural training. You put your faith in the power of God. And I do believe that you gonna be guided by the Holy Spirit to do this. But I think cultural understanding is what we do. Your diligence to do what you can do to break these barriers as soon as possible, so you can be as effective as soon as you connect with people. So let's talk about some cultural sensitivities. So you go into a family, you want to greet the family. Who do you greet first? And again, a woman and a man is different. Women, don't stretch your hand to a man. Man, don't stretch your hand to a woman. But if you are the same gender, then you start usually with the oldest man, and then you go down, to the eldest woman. Then you kind of have to guess who's the oldest son, and then you go down, one by one. So this is the hierarchy that is actually played in the greeting when you go in. Do not talk to a person from another gender unless you're introduced. And when speaking to family, you call the elder woman auntie, or you call the older man uncle. Calling people with their first name, as you know, is kind of considered rude. This is another diagram to show you when you technically extend your hand. You can see the Canadian Prime Minister. He's liked by the Muslim community in Canada because he knows these cultural sensitivities, and you can see you can always do this. So it really, when people see that you're trying and you're actually knowledgeable, they respect that, and that gives you a lot of points with your guests. Now, the usual hugs are different. People don't hug as much unless they're family members, but they do very, common handshake. But if they add their hand to the handshake, grab your elbow, grab your shoulder, that means they're more dear to you. And mostly when people kind of greet each other, hugs stays for family members. So if they hug you from same gender, of course, that means you're close to them. You're building trust. That's kind of sign to you. Now, You all know about the feet direction. You don't want to put your feet on the couch. You don't want to face anybody with the bottom of your feet. This is a known thing, even I think with the Jewish community, um, to the degree that your Muslim friend will not sleep with his feet facing Mecca to the south. They try to avoid that. So feet, take off your shoes. You know these things. It's probably known in the Middle East, but I want to say that all this is a reminder to you. Some gestures, we had a fun time with the AYC trip in Dearborn here when they came, and they were some of the people on the group were saying, "Oh, the food is great," and the guy, and I said, "I mean, this means like you're in trouble." So there are some gestures that when we do like this, and when we say "come," and when we say "you're dear to me," and when you say "ala rasi," it means I really would love to serve you. I will carry you on my head. So these things are kind of gestures that would help you to look through and understand. One of the things I also like to mention is levels of modesty, and probably most of you know this by now. And the more flowy is the more modest. And then these are the levels of religiosity. An open face is less religious than a covered than with eyes or of complete coverage. Men also, you can tell their religious, connections, religious dress and appearance. And you can see that the dark spot on the forehead is something that people are proud of because it's a callus made from a forehead contacting the ground during prayer. That means I pray a lot. So it's something that people kind of have it carried with pride. The same with attire like this, religiosity, and then even young kids, you can tell if their parents are very committed, they will look a different way. You can differentiate sometimes the clerks from a Shia to Sunni. Usually the head turban is a little different. So, that can help you. Also, there are different kind of thobes. The Kuwaiti is different than Omani, Bahraini, Qatari, Emirati, Saudi. I think the Jordanian is pretty close to the Saudi one. But it will be nice to know, and it might give you some advantage if you understand that. And this is also other Palestinian and Jordanian attire. These are the traditional ones that not a lot of people really dress now, but you'll be able to differentiate between different cultures through the attire. I'm going to move into hospitality because it's really an essential way to build trust. Usually American culture, you build trust by task. If I give you a task and you do it, then technically you are trustworthy. Many tasks mean I trust you more. In the Middle East, you build trust, what we call, it's not a cognitive trust like North America. It's affective. It's based on emotions. It's based on me sitting and having a meal with you and spending hours and hours together, going to birthday parties and going to the park and doing things. That's how trust is built. So you can trust somebody who's really not good at doing things. Let's say I trust this painter. I know he's not a good painter, but I trust him. So I might even hire him because I trust him in my house. I trust him. He will care for me. He'll do his best. So it's a little different. But the hospitality is actually the way that we build trust. So opening your home, having meals together, meeting together on a table, coffee, dinner, desserts. This is how people build trust. So, and people do a lot of work, and I've probably experienced that. They would invite you. They want to be elaborate because hospitality brings honor to the host, not just to you. The host is considered honorable in his community. You remember Abraham running to meet these guests. He rushed, brought them in, and he was planning what to do. He was going to make them a meal, wash their feet, wash their hands. So he wants to gain the honor of hosting. So you gain honor in the community if you host. So that's something very important for you to kind of remember. The hospitality I'm reading some of the chat. Hospitality sometimes is a lot of work, and you don't have to make it this way because you live in a different culture. You can cater if it's not expensive, but you can also try at least to do 2 or 3 dishes so that can show that you have made this food. Catering does not have the same effect. If it's catered, try to put it in regular dishes, so people would know that at least you made an effort. But usually people want to make the food so they can put their own time, their own talent into a gift that comes to you, which is the meal. Now, it's always when you go and you're invited, I think you have to know a few things, is that you wait to be seated wherever they want you to sit, and they kind of make it kind of gender specific, especially if it's a Muslim family. And then you have to wait until people scoop food for you. In the US, you say help yourself. Usually, no, you wait. If your plate is empty, you wait for them to scoop for you, unless they tell you, hey, go ahead and scoop for yourself. So usually you take food from your side of the table. Let's say if there's a platter, you cannot reach out to the other side of the platter. If it's a hummus plate, you eat from the side in front of you directly. Try not to mix food together. So with this, they usually going to carry sometimes meat and put it in front of you with their hands, and they will pick the best thing. And if you're not a germaphobe, that's easy, but sometimes it might feel a little awkward, especially when you eat mensaf with your hand. It's like there are rules to do it, and you have to learn it ahead of time. I personally go with a spoon because I don't want to deal with that dynamic, but and it's fine if you ask for it. But if you want to really indulge in the culture, there are some etiquettes for the eating mensaf with a hand. So people avoid double dipping to try to do that. So you have to kind of make your way around these stable manners. But I know as somebody in that culture, you already learned a lot of that. Of course, when you offer food, you have to also say that you're bringing halal food. One of the things I also mentioned to people is that, hey, when you go into, and this is probably in Saudi Arabia, but when you're a guest, where you sit is essential, because usually the hierarchical people sit, let's say, put the guest in the center, and then out of the sides you get the people with less and less and less hierarchy in the community. So the youngest would be at the edges and the center. So sometimes we have people visiting us here, and the kids will run and sit on the couch in the center of the couch. And I was like, this is awkward. I don't want to ask him to leave because I want my guest to sit there. But he's also my young guest, and I don't want to offend the parents. So children has lower hierarchy. Usually you put them somewhere else, and the seating is reserved, the best room for the parents, for the elders, for the pastor, for the ministers, and then the rest can find their seat, help themselves, or maybe go to a different room. So you might find this a little more disrespectful to children, but the hierarchy is for elderly. And then there's also element of status. Let's say if there is an elder man who's 70, but there is a parliament member who is 50, the parliament member will take, he would respect the elder, but he will take the front seat, because government officials or religious, leaders will probably trump age at that side. One other thing I also want to, when you are in a group setting, it's if you ask a question about faith or understanding of something, it's almost an honor shame challenge. This is a clip where the Pharisees come in and try to trick Jesus to actually ask him a question that he would not know the answer, so they would rob him from the honor of being a teacher. And the Bible says that when he answers usually these questions, he puts them to shame. So that interaction is an honor-shame battle. So if you want to discuss religion or discuss people's understanding of something, you do not do it in public, because it will be felt like it's an attack on their faith. You do what Nicodemus have done. Come at night, talk directly, say, I know you're a rabbi, I know you're a teacher, teach me. So you come with a different attitude. So any challenging topic, you want to have that one-on-one as much as you can. I'll shift gears to talk about a very important topic in actually evangelism, which is understanding that the Middle Eastern culture is a shame-based culture. And you probably understand this. Let me show you this map, the map of the world, that how people perceive sin or respond to sin. You can notice North America is mostly guilt-based. Some countries in South America and Africa have more fear. So every human being actually have all three together. Like they have a bit of a guilt, a bit of a fear, a bit of a shame. Like my score, there's a test you can do to see how you respond. I was 48% shame, 40% guilt, and 8% fear. My daughter was 70% guilt. She grew up here. So there's a big difference. And why am I saying this? Because it's a social emotion that people respond also. There's shame from the community, and there's shame with your relationship with God. So there's two kind of elements of shame. And then there are two types of shame. There's a good shame and bad shame. So I want to quickly cover these because it will help you when you minister, because honor and shame are invisible, and usually it's more prominent in a collective culture because they are imposed on you by your group. If you do something that the group does not agree on, then you're going to receive shame from the group. If you do something good, you get honor. They're opposite each other. Now, in North America, our teachers, theologians who wrote a lot of the church history training and theology were actually Greek lawyers. So they used a lot of the guilt language because it's like a courtroom kind of taste to it. So that's how we feel in the US, that I have committed sin. Jesus paid the price. He is my covering. He's the judge is not going to look at my sin. He took my sin on the cross. My sin is paid for. In a sense, that makes you innocent now. In the Middle East, if I sin, I feel ashamed of God. I stay away from God, and I make a gap, a separation, similar to Adam and Eve have done in the garden. They hid from God. And then the shame aspect to it is that people, if they're pulling away from the church or from God, it's because something happened. They're shame. Now, what is a good news? What is the gospel? Good news is telling people that you can reconcile that relationship with God. So in a sense, the good news for somebody like me, excuse me, who is feeling ashamed, is telling me that Jesus took my shame on the cross, and that I am adopted back to the family of God, and I'm accepted. A prodigal son story would be very effective in that context. So there's books, and I'm going to refer to you later, very small, very nice books that will tell you how to minister to people in the shame culture. I'm sure you know about these books, but I'm going to say is, for me, as a Middle Eastern, I feel I want to run away from God, and you want to encourage people to do the opposite and tell them that God already took that shame on the cross. He was shamed on the cross for you, so you don't have to feel shame, and that you reconcile them with God and with the family of God as soon as possible. So this is an essential a topic that I'm sure you get exposed to a lot and you read about, because this is very essential for ministry in that culture. One thing I want to say, that this is a saying from Benjamin Franklin, that having been poor is no shame, but being ashamed of it is. This does not apply in the Middle East. Poverty is shameful. People try to do their best not to show that they're poor. So they want to boast about what they have. They want to drive a car that they can barely afford. They're going to make more food than when they bring you in to show you that I have status. They're going to try to have a gold chain or a silver chain or something, because showing that you're poor is shameful. In Proverbs 8:18, the Bible says, riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. So in the Old Testament, the Lord was giving this riches as honor. If you're wealthy, you're honorable. So try to be sensitive. When you give people a gift that they have to respond back to you, you don't want to add more responsibility for them, because they sometimes, if they cannot repay you the gift, because people want to repay the gift, it might be too expensive for them, so they might pull away. So sometimes you feel like, I'm doing something good, why did they stop talking to me or connecting with me, avoiding me? Because you have put them in a position they have to repay your gift, but they can't afford it, and they don't want to be shamed for it, so they just disconnect completely. So you have to be aware of that, and a lot of cultures actually do this, especially with outward appearance. If there's an occasion, they put their gold on, they put their jewelry, and it's not just as way to look nice. It's actually to signal to people that I am actually wealthy. I'm not poor. I'm honorable. You need to give me a seat on the table. You need to respect me. And in a hierarchical situation, culture like this, it's important to know who is where. So if you want to push yourself up, you want to have some jewelry on you. So a lot of the jewelry thing is not really, and it's to get more honor, and of course it's very close to be prideful. So in reality, you want to have that connection with people, but understanding that not all jewelry is made to be immodest in a sense. It's for the cultural expectation of people. One of the things you probably have seen, this is the Boston bomber video. I want to, maybe I can play it here for you to hear.
He put a shame. He put a shame on the Tsarnaev's our family, Tsarnaev's family. He put a shame on the entire Chechen ethnicity.
So when the Chechen and Boston bombers came and they were running, their uncle said they brought shame to our family, the Tsarnaev family, and to the entire Chechens. People in North America don't think this way. If something is done which is bad, it goes to the family, maybe immediate family. But you can see in the collective culture, the shame goes to everybody. And this is pretty a challenge. So he was telling him, go surrender yourself. You're going to go executed, but at least you remove the shame from the Chechen people and from the family. So you have to be aware that the shame is a general concept, and every culture deal with shame differently. How do you remove that shame? The shame in the Middle East is removed by shedding blood, by killing the shame cause, the cause. The cause is a woman, the cause is a man, doesn't matter. Unfortunately, that sometimes goes into the family itself to remove that shame. In Asia, they respond to shame differently. They stop looking at you, they isolate you. In Japan, they stab themselves, they commit suicide. In the Middle East, in Africa, they push you away out of the tribe. In the Middle East, you want to kill that source. And this is very hard. And a lot of people cannot understand how somebody can kill a family member for suspicious behavior, not even proven behavior. And the reason is, it's because they do not want the family to take the burden of shame. And that burden of shame can be so negative to the whole collective group. So the immediate family and the extended family would put pressure on, let's say, that father who his daughter was accused of having extramarital relationship, that you need to kill her so you will get rid of your shame of your family, so we can interact with the rest of your family later with honor. So this is very essential. And the laws in Jordan and a lot of countries in the Middle East would allow people to preserve their honor. Let's say an honor killing, that's what they call it in Jordan, is you get to jail for a few months for honor killing. Even you killed a soul, you don't go for life like we do for other cases. And the reason is they need to give the culture, people, the family, a way to preserve their honor. And it is hard to really to digest. So this is a QR code. I'm going to leave it for you. If you can scan, you can test and see how you respond. What are you more, fear or guilt or honor? And it might, well, this is what we call a worldview, and it would help you kind of interact with people and understand how they feel. As I said, the Western culture is mostly guilt. They do have some shame and fear. Eastern culture is mostly shame, less guilt and fear. And these are suggested, ways of thinking about fear, shame, and guilt. So in shame, it merits punishment when you feel guilty. So the remedy for shame is to reconcile the relationship and restore order and harmony. And that's what a good news is. So when you want to bring the good news between somebody who's guilty or shamed, the language that you're going to use is different. As I said, Jesus bore all your shame on the cross and restored your honor, and you joined the family of God by taking Jesus' name at baptism and received the Holy Spirit. And the best example would be the prodigal son. It's very dear and close to the people's hearts and minds. And I also want to say that the Heavenly Father, the idea of God embracing us is very sentimental, and it's very emotional, and I think it's helpful. Ephesians 1:5 says, He predestined us for adoption to Himself as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of His will. And in Ephesians 2:19, so then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. And I think these scripture will bring to people more understanding of the relationship with the Heavenly Father. Quick points I want to cover too is the way people think in the Middle East. They do more deductive reasoning, and if you grow up in North America, you will have inductive reasoning, which is all based on the philosophers who actually created the educational system. So in a sense, individualist inductive reasoning is what we call an application first. Let's say you start with the facts or observations, and you go to generalizations after that. And that is actually very common. People tell you, hey, share your testimony, share what happened to you, and then you teach people that it's in the Bible. I see this a little different in the Middle East because deductive reasoning are people who are concept first, which means that I want you to give me the general idea, the general principles, and then you give me your personal conclusion. So if you start with your personal story, it might not have the same weight. Okay, so I'll give you kind of an example to that. In the United States, you say, well, I received the Holy Ghost, I experienced the presence of God, and look, you can see this actually happen many times in the book of Acts, and see Jesus actually ask everybody to receive the Holy Ghost with new birth, so everybody should have this experience. So you started from the application to the concept. In the Middle East, it's actually you're going to have to come in with a different direction. You start with a general idea that people are sinful, people need God, sinful nature, you need a new nature. Jesus taught about this new nature. And in the book of Acts, people received the Holy Ghost as born again. And you know what? I also received it. So this brings from, in a deductive reasoning culture, it brings from a general principle to an application. So it's like it's a reversed, diagram in a sense. One other thing you have to also know that Middle Eastern people are holistic thinkers, while in North America they're dichotomistic. Dichotomistic means segmental thinking, right or wrong. It's mostly examine the details and the reasoning, the basis of it. Holistic people look at everything from a general idea. So in a pattern of thinking that which particulars are not separated from the whole, larger picture. The whole is greater than the parts. They reason on the basis of perceived relationships within the whole. I'll give you an example. If somebody had, let's say, a minister had a moral failure in North America, usually they will ask him to step aside because, it's a big moral failure. It's right or wrong, it's wrong, then you move. In a holistic thinking environment, well, they say, well, he'd been a minister for 15 years. He has helped a lot of people, and he just failed this time. So maybe we should give him a chance. And for a dichotomistic thinking, it feels like, oh, this is not right. Or for a holistic thinker, they would say, well, it's not right to get rid of somebody that have been ministering for a long time and helped a lot of people. So this is a little example, maybe a little extreme, but I think it will give you an idea how holistic thinkers are. And with that, when you try to train them, holistic thinkers are different in a sense. Dichotomistic thinking work best with the Paul letters because they're more intellectual, they're more logical, more close to Greek philosophy, right or wrong. Now, holistic thinkers, like the disciples of Jesus Christ or the Old Testament writing, you teach them by actually telling stories, showing examples, giving parables, showing them hands-on how to do things. So holistic thinkers want that kind of a interaction to learn. It's more effective if you do a video or a play or do role playing, something like that. Or so these skits that we do, they're very effective in holistic thinkers. And you can tell that the Lord did this with his disciples. He was not sitting, talking philosophy in a sense, or, speaking out of abstract. He was giving them real-time examples from parables and the stories of life. And that is very targeted to holistic thinking group of people. One other reminder that the Middle Eastern people are very traditional in a sense. Change for them is actually negative. So in the United States, change is good, change is new, is fresh, it's exciting, it's interesting. Let's see what we can get out of this, right? Change in the Middle East is something called negative. Something is like, hey, this is changing fast. I'm concerned. So when you talk about political leaders like in Iraq, Saddam Hussein, or talk Hosni Mubarak, or talk about King Hussein, try not to mention these people in any negative way, because some people just like them and they're traditional and they want to keep it this way. So avoid criticizing traditions because they like the traditions, they preserve them. And also you have to avoid criticizing, or focusing on certain events. Let the word of God change their mind about certain topics. You want their souls to be saved, and all these additional traditional things usually will be gradually changed if they are against the word of God. So just be patient with these. They always see societal change with suspicion. So if somebody comes in with new ideas, people are always suspicious. Is that going to be good? Is it going to affect the culture? And that's why these communities are stable, unchanging, but also at the same time, the price you pay for that is like there's no progress in a lot of things. And that's the negative side of it. Middle Eastern people avoid uncertainty. And in a sense, although they're very hospitable, they're very liking of guests. They are very protective of their guests, but they're also xenophobic in a sense. They're scared of strangers because strangers have not brought great things in the past. That's one thing. The other thing is stranger is a different culture. So when they asked the Jordanians, would you like to have somebody from a different culture live as your neighbor? 52% of people said no. They're willing to have you at their home for a meal. They're willing to be friends with you, but they don't want to live by you. Now, I think Jordan scored number 81 out of 81 countries in that survey. The most open people for others is North Americans and Latinos. So don't expect that Middle Eastern people will be as welcoming to somebody who's completely different. So you need to kind of first build trust, and you have to bring something to the table that they want to be friends with you. They want to connect with you. So, and that can take a long time, and that can take a lot of sacrifice. So one of the small things that, people focus on is I'm bringing something new. This is a new doctrine. People don't like that. They want to know that this is traditional. This is old. This came in the past. Another thing about is leadership. Really, American leader is somebody who's accept uncertainty, who's change agile, who's willing to make a change. A leader in the Middle East is somebody who does not change because everybody wants to avoid uncertainty. So they like the leaders who do not change their mind. They're always steady. And this is really hard for progress, but that's how they think. Time events is very essential. I think it's very frustrating for people, even in North America here, when they interact with people from other cultures. We call it Middle Eastern time, Spanish time. It's all people are late. But you have to understand that people see time as something that does not belong to them. It belongs to nature, it belongs to God, it belongs to the family. So they tell you, inshallah, God willing. And I don't know. I mean, we're going to meet, but maybe my uncle is going to ask me to do something. And that, so it's not in my hand. I have to do that. So a lot of times they give you open-ended, answers. And the reason is they don't feel like they have to control the time. So it can, when you hear inshallah, it means yes or no, or it could be anything in between. So it doesn't really mean much. It's not a commitment. Now, the culture in the Middle East is event time, not clock time, which means you say, hey, I want to have Bible study 7 to 8. People are going to come probably 7:30 and leave at 10. So it doesn't happen really according to your clock time in your culture. So you have to be aware of that. It might be inconsiderate that people come in late and leave late, but they might also seem that you are unkind in a sense, that you're giving them a time frame. The focus of the event is the relationship. They want to spend time with you. They want to know you. They want to connect with you. And that is something more important for them than whatever you're planning to do. So your agenda, if it's based on something, they're going to feel, in a sense, offended that you're not inviting them for them. So their perception of time is based on, as long as we get together, as long as we spend time together, then this is the most important thing. It doesn't matter when we come, when we leave. So they believe that time is, in a sense, that we want to spend together is not something that we control. It's just, it can come and go. And they see it that is something that if you put me in a structure, that means it's business relationship, and they do not want to have business with you. They want to have a relationship. So people can come in late or early, rarely early, but I think they can. So one of the things I tell people, you can tell them, hey, my kids go to school in the morning. I have to get them to bed at, let's say, 10 p.m. So, so you indirectly tell them that I need to finish this at 10. And you put them in their hand, in a sense. So when it becomes close to 10, they say, oh, sorry, we have to leave. I know you have to put your kids to sleep. So you don't tell them, I want you to come from 2. You just tell them what I have to do next. So they can be a little more, they will be more, because they want to preserve the relationship, they will make that change in their behavior to accommodate you to keep that relationship. And one of the things that you have to also remember, that when they leave, they actually, you're going to say they're going to leave, and they can stand up, they're going to stand by the door for another 15 minutes and by the car for another 20 minutes. Why? Because leaving abruptly means that I'm upset, means that something bad happened and I'm leaving. While if you leave gradually, that means that is indirectly telling you that I enjoyed my time, but I really have to go, and I wish we could spend more time together. So the retreat from the house slowly is sending a signal that I really like you, I like the relationship, and I'm not offended by anything. One thing we also don't focus on is Middle Eastern people believe in kinship, which means that I am responsible for my cousins and everybody else, and I have to get them jobs in my business if I have a business, and find a job for them. So when you get somebody to come to your church, either from or join your group from any denomination in Christianity or from any religion, if they had a job based on their kinship, they might lose that job because they want them to conform to the group and stay within the group. So they will put pressure on them to come back. And I think this is very essential, that that people can lose their livelihood just for switching, even denominations. So kinship is very strong in the Middle Eastern culture. My brother gets a phone call, hey, you need to hire a cousin. I said, well, I don't think she can do the job. He said, doesn't matter. You just have to hire her because she needs the job and we need to help the family. So this is very important. And I think the culture is all built on kinship, and we have to practice it if we want to win people. Let's say certain tasks done at church, you need to have the church members doing it. They might feel like I should be included in that job. I should take that position. I should be the one, let's say, painting the church, cleaning the church, or doing this, because we have to practice kinship. And it would show that you don't care about them if you hire somebody from outside. Even if you're trying to do is to connect with more people and build kind of more a broader base and build new connections, they will feel like, hey, you're excluding me, so you're not practicing kinship, you're not friends. So, and they're going to feel offended. Just keep that in mind. I did send you a bunch of videos, links to watch. If you did not get them, I think I can share them again. The challenging political situation is the United States and Canada is supportive of Israel. And since 1947, there's significant tension, as you know. And what I would say, simple principles, I know the video is going to be probably more detailed and more helpful, but I want to say that since 1948, this topic has become the major topic in life, and it's very deeply ingrained in the culture. When the Palestinian exodus happened in 48 to Jordan, other countries, and then having more settlements happen in the West Bank, and then the Oslo Accords and all that. This is a very complicated map, and it's changing almost every few months. I would say, I usually say, well, God is saddened by people dying from any people dying by any conflict, and I hope one day we'll have peace. And I think you not take any positions, and because everybody have a good reason for what they've done. And I think the video, the longer video that I sent, has kind of covered both sides, and both have legitimate, concerns and reasoning. So you don't try to solve it; just try to kind of say it saddens the Lord that His children are killing each other. Just these are two apps with Arabic versions that can actually read. So if you want to share with people, these are the versions in Arabic that I think are reasonable, and they have audio. People, more listeners in that culture, oral culture, and I think it will give you a way to share without really being very. If people can't read or don't have time to read, or they don't want to read, or if they want to hide it from somebody that they cannot carry the book, then this is essential for them to have on their phone, and it would help them. These are a couple of good books that I would recommend. You will have them in your slides. These are a few other ones that also are helpful. This is the one that I really like you to, the three here, I think they're reasonable to talk about and reasonable to discuss among you and learn about it. I think they help me the most understanding my culture and the way to connect with people. And this is the Facebook page that we post. I post on it most of the resources that we have. So if you want to refer to training like this in the future, or hopefully I'm going to post this one as well for future reference and to share with others. This Facebook page is very helpful, and I hope you will have access to it whenever you're looking for resources. It's apostolic, dedicated for that culture. So with that, I'm gonna stop here because I really wanted to give time for questions, and I think we do have kind of 15 minutes. And I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna stop recording. Let me be sure, and I'm gonna pause the recording.